Hello, I'm Jennifer Wade, an area engineer with the Missouri Department of Transportation in St. Louis. Thank you for joining our presentation on the recommended improvements for the Interstate 64 corridor from Kings Highway to Jefferson. This concept is the result of the Future 64 study, conducted to address the needs of this dynamic and evolving area. MoDOT has substantial bridge work planned for this segment, and we took the opportunity to examine nearby bridges and interchanges. Our goal is to ensure these structures are optimized to meet the demands of modern travel, enhancing safety, connectivity, and accessibility for all users. Our community engagement for this project has been an integral part of the process, and we've consistently incorporated public feedback. A common theme we've heard through in-person meetings, surveys, and online engagement is that the current corridor needs to be more accessible and safer for bikers, pedestrians, and drivers. We've worked closely with our community partners to develop the recommended concept, which we will be reviewing here together. This is the list of needs and goals that we came up with from listening to the public. So we had to talk with our partners in the community, residents, travelers through this corridor, and we found out what the community needed and wanted from a project like this. This slide shows the decision-making process that we went through as part of the Future 64 study. So we started with brainstorming what all the changes could be in the corridor, and then after that we were able to whittle it down using those needs and goals of the community and line it up into three sort of proposed ideas, and it's those three ideas that we ran through a full analysis on. We got those results, and then what we were able to do with those results in hand is get it whittled down to one recommended concept. So that's the phase we're on right now. We have that one concept, we've got a full analysis of that concept in hand, and we're presenting it back to the public. This is when we get to start taking a closer look at what the actual recommended changes are in this corridor. First, we'll look at the west interchange. This is near Boyle and Tower Grove ramps. Also, Vandeventer ramps are in this image. I'm just going to highlight some of the biggest changes here, and you can look on this slide for more details. First, we're taking the on-ramp that goes to eastbound 64 and we're moving it. Right now it comes from Papin Avenue. We're going to move that over to Boyle Avenue. Also, we're adding a new eastbound on-ramp. It comes from the westbound Vandeventer on-ramp today. So now when you take that ramp, you'll either be able to go east or west. Also, you'll see some additional lanes and turning lanes on the north side of the intersection that serves our westbound exit ramp as well as westbound on-ramp. Just take a look at this slide if you want to see more of the details. In this slide, we get to take a closer look at that east interchange area. This is where our Market Street, Forest Park Avenue, and Grand ramps are all located right now. This area takes up a really big footprint in the middle of this bustling corridor. We think in the future that shouldn't be necessary. The interstate can take up a smaller footprint in this area if we can reconfigure some of these ramps. So you'll see in the middle, there's some what we call spaghetti ramps have been removed. If you look on the south side of the interstate, you'll see a new roundabout there. So the Grand exit ramp, instead of just making a U-turn, passes through that roundabout first. That helps us establish more of an urban grid in this area. And if you'll see, Teresa Avenue now is a new connection from the north side under the interstate, and it helps get people to that roundabout. That Teresa Avenue connection can also be used to have an on-grade connection right to the Metrolink station. We don't have that currently. To get there right now, you need to use the elevators or stairs at Grand Avenue. You can also see the ramps on the westbound side have been moved. So there's a westbound exit ramp now that takes you directly to Grand Avenue, and the westbound entrance ramp from Grand has been realigned so that those two are across from each other. Take a look at this slide for more of the details, but those are the big items that you want to look for. Next, we're going to look at some of the benefits of the changes being proposed in this recommended concept. One of the comments we really heard from all of our stakeholders, the institutions, business owners, residents, users of the corridor, was they really wanted to see increased safety, not just for people in cars, but also for transit users, bike riders, walking, things like that. One of the things this recommended concept includes is 1.5 miles of new high-quality bike and pedestrian facilities. You'll see that on those recommended concept layouts, and here are some examples of what those might look like when it comes time to do the projects. One of the project needs for Future 64 was to improve the navigation in this area. The recommended concept relocates some ramps to make for more intuitive navigation, so it should be easier now for drivers to understand how to get to their final destination. The next project need we wanted to address with this recommended concept was reducing the barrier effect. When you put an interstate through a city, sometimes it can create a barrier for community development or for paths of travel or generally neighborhood feel. So one goal in this work was to look for ways to reestablish that city grid, passing either under or over the interstate. So you'll see that in a couple places here. The big one is at Teresa Avenue. It connects a new route from Forest Park Avenue down to Spruce. Also recommended is a bridge that continues on Teresa over the railroad tracks to the south. That'll really help establish that community connection, as well as have a non-arterial route that gets you across both of those barriers. This Teresa Avenue connection also brings people on grade down to that Metrolink station like we mentioned before. Another project need for Future 64 was to look for safe and efficient vehicular travel through the corridor in 2050. So this is making sure that I-64 continues to perform well for the vehicles traveling through it. Once we get to 2050, looking at the travel patterns we expect to see then, with the new recommended changes, we would see a 25% decrease in delay, as well as a 41% decrease in stops as you travel the corridor. On this slide, we are showing the funded project that is part of the maintenance work MoDOT has been planning to do on the I-64 bridges that carry the I-64 traffic over Vandeventer. This project is fully funded. It is coming starting in 2027 and is the impetus for why we wanted to look at the rest of the corridor. If you look in orange, you'll see the bridge that carries eastbound I-64. It is going to be fully replaced, completely removed and replaced with a new bridge. The westbound bridge of I-64 is much longer. It's in green. It is not going to be replaced, but it is getting a major rehab, also starting in 2027. You'll also notice in this image that there are two places where we will be coordinating with Great Rivers Greenway because they are constructing crossings across I-64 in our similar time window. Currently on this bridge project, our engineers are looking to decide how to maintain traffic through the I-64 corridor during this very impactful work. Obviously, when you replace a bridge that's carrying the I-64 traffic, it's going to have impacts. Right now, we've got a lot of things to consider as we make these plans, and I want to walk through a few of the things we're currently trying to balance as we come up with these plans. As you're listening to these, think of anything we might not have thought of yet. We're looking for your input as well at this time. We're considering the average delay of travelers through and across the corridor. Obviously, we want to protect worker and traveler safety during construction. We are considering what possible disruptions due to traffic incidents might do to the traffic. Also, we want to consider access to hospitals and other institutions in this corridor. It's a very active corridor right now. We have to look at the impacts to public transit, impacts to any possible detour routes that people might use or that we might use. Bicycle and pedestrians will need to continue traveling through this area during construction, and as well as any choices that we make, what those might do to the duration of the project. Of course, a shorter term project is always more preferable to a really long project in the area. If there's other things you think we should be considering, please let us know in the survey that's coming up. So let's talk about what all this will cost. You'll see on this slide in the green bar in the middle of the page there, it shows $87 million. Now that's the existing investment that MoDOT is bringing to replace that eastbound bridge that carries I-64 over Vandeventer, as well as some major rehab work to the westbound bridge. That is a funded project and it's moving forward. Because we had this large investment in the corridor, that really instigated all this look into what other changes might be best for the future. Now, the changes recommended now at the West Interchange, that totals $34.7 million. That includes some projects that are on the MoDOT system, as well as some projects that are not on the MoDOT system. We have broken up these costs as best we can into who might be paying for the end product, but it can always change as funding becomes available. Likewise, on the East Interchange, the changes near Grand are much more significant and also include some optional bridges over the railroad tracks, etc. The total cost of all those changes is $111 million, again broken up between the different entities who might end up paying for that at the end. So if you look at the circle on the right, you'll see that we do have the blue area, that's the funded bridge work. MoDOT has another $18.8 million allocated to do some of these changes already, and we're working with our partners to look for the other $127 million that might be necessary to finish all of this work. Let's talk about the project timeline a little bit. This study started back in 2022. Since then, we've been having a back and forth conversation with the public as we understand their goals and get the different ideas and approved or commented on by the public as we go through the process. Currently, today, we have developed one recommended concept for the corridor, and this is our opportunity to present back to the public and get your feedback and comments. The next phase will be construction. We know that the bridges that carry I-64 over Vandeventer, both are going to have that work starting in 2027. The construction on these different elements in the recommended concept have not been fully funded yet. We've got conversations ongoing with our governmental agency and institutional partners right now, and as those elements get funded, we'll be able to roll those out to the public. Thank you for your interest in Future 64. For more information or to leave a comment, please visit the project website, modot.org/Future64. You can also scan the QR code on the screen to be directed to the comment form. Thanks again, and stay safe.